Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of the Wiccan Conservative. Today we are going to be discussing more loss of liberty and the people who have been victims of the coronavirus, and not talking about the ones who got sick and died. As the news is coming out, more and more information is being collected, and there are doctors that are actually doing hard data research based upon their personal experiences with the virus, working in the hospitals and seeing what's going on the front lines. And they're starting to come out and they're starting to talk about things that we already alluded to, the potential that this virus is, a little bit more contagious than anything that we've seen before. Asymptomatic people are actually driving the spread of the disease, and it's not quite as deadly as we first thought it was, due to the research that we have conducted, due to the science that we have available to us, and also, how we decided to handle the hospital situation when it comes down to flattening the curve, making sure that health professionals have enough time, and going through all those motions. We're starting to find that maybe this wasn't the right course of action for America. Maybe it wasn't a great idea to shut down the economy. And now that a lot of states are talking about reopening, and the cases are, slowing down, we are starting to kind of look back and decide, maybe there was something a little bit bigger going on when it comes to this virus. Now, the information that I'm going to present to you guys today is a cumulative list, I guess, of people who have been arrested since this disease has officially, or unofficially, if you will, made its way into America and the shutdowns have went down. So these are the people that were arrested for just simply violating the stay-at-home orders. Starting in Kentucky, there was a comment left on the last video that I posted talking about a woman who got arrested for going to the store. So this is where I started looking for the information pertaining to the people who were arrested for coronavirus without, in some cases, even having coronavirus. So in Kentucky, the woman's name was Kendra Burnett, and she was arrested for violating a court order by going into Kroger. She was charged with 5 counts of first-degree endangerment, 1 count of contempt of court, and 1 count of second-degree mischief for going to Kroger's during the stay-at-home order. In Colorado, Ryan Albert, Travis Petit, and Joseph Thompson. These names get a little bit more difficult down the line, so I apologize for any mispronunciations in advance. These 3 gentlemen in Colorado were charged with a failure to comply with a public health order and arrested for visiting a friend. So what had happened was they were going to visit one of their friends, and their friends had a roommate, and the roommate didn't want them to come over. He didn't want any company, so he called the cops. There was a 4th man involved, Robert Rees, and he was charged with 3rd-degree assault and obstructing an officer. He wasn't arrested at the scene. The 3 that were arrested were Ryan, Travis, and Joseph, and the only thing that they were charged with was failure to comply with a public health order. One of these things is not like the other. The 4th man that was involved was charged with 3rd-degree assault and obstructing an officer, and he walked off the scene that day. The people that had came to visit their friend against the health violation walked out in handcuffs. In Ohio, Cincinnati, Rashawn Davis was charged with a misdemeanor for recording and encouraging activities that oppose the lockdown order. And the police actually requested an elevated bond for this offense. You can go onto YouTube and you can search for Cincinnati party, or I can't remember the name of the video, but he was recording on the street, gathering, a community gathering, if you will, and was encouraging people to not listen to the stay-at-home orders, that he didn't care about the coronavirus, and they were going to go out and do what they wanted to do. Whole mess of people. Rasheen was the only one that was noted for being charged and arrested. On the other side of Ohio, in Toledo, Christopher Kinnenbrew was arrested for violating the stay-at-home order. He was removed from 2 residences, but returned to the second residence while the officers were still present, so they arrested him. So Chris was out and visiting. So he was visiting in the area that he lives in, went to one of his buddy's house. The cops, I guess, told him to leave. So he went to another buddy's house. The cops came and told them to leave again. He left, he complied, and then he just decided he was going to come back. Well, unfortunately, he came back while the officer was still at the scene, and the officer arrested him for failure to comply with the stay-at-home order. Shaquilla Barber and Malik Wise, also in Toledo, were arrested among a crowd of 50 people for refusal to disperse. And Barber actually caught disorderly conduct charges, which I'm assuming is for resisting arrest. These people were out again amongst a bunch of people and decided to take a stand and said, no, we're doing what we want to do, and we're assembling, and we're not causing any issues. And the police came down and arrested them anyways. I think it's kind of funny with this story. At the end of the article that I found this story in, there was a shooting overnight after these 2 were picked up and arrested. So it's kind of interesting that among the 50 people that you came out to arrest, you still didn't prevent an actual crime from being committed, because there was a shooting there later on. So you arrested 2 people for refusing to disperse, but you didn't even catch the criminal in this case. I think that's interesting. I think it speaks a lot to the absolutely unconstitutional measures that are being taken by the police force. In North Carolina and Charlotte, 8 protesters were arrested for protesting abortion. This is the one that Ted Cruz voiced his opinion on. From what I gathered from the story, they just went to the local government office and, sat with their picket signs, and cops came and arrested them. And, Ted Cruz found out about it and started speaking out about it and talking about, how it was unconstitutional for people who were peacefully assembling to redress their grievances are being picked up and thrown in jail. In Hawaii, 9 people were arrested for violating stay-at-home orders. The punishment for violating in Hawaii, and imagine how hard it would be to stay locked up in your house in Hawaii. The punishment is up to a year of jail time and up to a $5,000 fine. And also, if you go through these stories, that you'll see they are maxing out these fines. It's not like they're just taking, little pieces and kind of building up to the max fine. They're maxing out the fines on first offenses. And a lot of these stories are precedent in the states that they've happened in. Nothing like this has ever happened in any state before. California had 2 smoke shops receive criminal charges for not shutting down. So 2 businesses that decided that they were not going to shut down, that their livelihood would not be shut down, would not be shut down. They received criminal charges for staying open. This is also the state that they arrested the paddleboarder in. They actually got him by boat. They had a lifeguard on the shore that was kind of yelling to the guy and asking him to come in. He continued to paddleboard, continued to be the most socially distant person that you could be in the middle of the ocean. And the lifeguard called in, which I assume is the Coast Guard or maybe a lifeguard boat of sorts, and arrested him by the boat. And also in California, a surfer got fined $1,000 for going in the water with no lifeguard on duty. And I think it's kind of funny. I know here in Georgia, the lifeguards leave the beaches at about 4 or 5 o'clock ish, somewhere around there, and you're not required to leave the beach. There's just no lifeguard on duty, and you swim at your own risk. So how do you arrest a surfer for surfing without a lifeguard and violating a stay-at-home order? Interesting stuff. The penalty in San Diego is actually up to 6 months in jail and $1,000 fine. And I'm not exactly sure where the surfer was, but he got the maximum fine. He got fined the $1,000. And not to mention, he's going to have to go through court. All these people are going to have to go through the court system and, straighten this out. And it's going to be a burden on the local resources. And depending on how good the local judges are, we might see a lot of these cases move up the ranks. They might not be settled in the local districts that they happen in. They might have to be escalated up the ladder, but time will tell. In Pennsylvania, Natasha Long and Bernardo Turan were drinking in an area they didn't live in, and they didn't know anyone in the area, and they got arrested for the violation of stay-at-home orders, resisting arrest, and they threw the alcohol charge on them, on top of everything. So instead of just arresting them for maybe, being drunk in public or, open container, whatever law already exists, they didn't actually arrest them for that. Those were added charges on top of the violation of the stay-at-home orders because they were in an area they didn't belong in, because they went somewhere where they didn't know anybody, which if that's not restricting your freedom to move in the country wherever you want to be, I'm not sure what is. In Maryland, this article was from March, so the number may have gone up since then, but at least 34 people were arrested for a violation of stay-at-home orders. The police in Maryland actually conducted, at the time of this article, which I believe was March 26th, 17,300 compliance checks. That's just checks. I guess that's just people calling in and saying, hey, these people aren't listening. And they go from there. And they've also responded to an additional 1,352 compliance-related calls. So I take it back. The compliance checks were probably not phone calls. They were probably just people, police officers riding around doing the compliance checks like a police state. And then the 1,352 additional calls were from people or residents ratting out their neighbors and telling people, this is illegal and this is going on and we don't like it, so come over here and do something about it. But on top of that, Sean Marshall Myers was charged with failure to comply for refusing to disperse at a gathering at his home. He had people over his house and got arrested for not dispersing the people in his home. I think it's absolute insanity. So you can't be out with people, you can't visit people, you can't go anywhere. How is this not affecting our liberty? I just don't understand. Colorado, Matt Mooney arrested for playing ball with his daughter. This was the big one where he was in the field playing ball with his daughter. He was the former police officer, and they ended up releasing him with the apology. And everybody come out and said, it just should have never happened to begin with. I mean, what happened to all these other people? Like, it's nice that, Matt, being a former police officer, was able to walk away with an apology, but there are plenty of other people who are not walking away with apologies. They're just not walking away with apologies. In North Carolina, Ashley Smith, Lisa Marks Todd, and Wendy Kath McCazib were arrested for protesting the shutdowns and charged with resisting arrest and violation of a shutdown order. These were the ladies that were doing the reopen protest up in North Carolina. They went to I believe it was the Capitol building. Don't quote me, I'm not 100% sure. But I believe that they were the ones that were at the Capitol building, and they had their group of protesters with them, and they were the only three that got, arrested and charged with resisting arrest and violation of the shutdown order. So you can't even go out and I've said this before, you can't even go out and redress your government for the grievances right now because of the stay-at-home orders. In Idaho, Sarah Brady, this was another big one, was arrested and charged with trespassing for protesting the lockdown with her child at a park and a group of people at the park. So again, these ladies decided that they wanted to take their children out to the park and, kind of just, as tamely as possible, resist these unconstitutional stay-at-home orders. So the group of them decided that they were going to go to the park. And when they got there, there was caution tape all around the park. And, it was kind of made so that nobody would get onto the playground equipment or anything like that. And they took the stuff down and they just decided to let their children play. But the funny thing about this story is they arrested her and led her away while they left the children at the park, first and foremost. Second, there were multiple people there with their children there as well, who also did not disperse when the police got there, but somehow Sarah was the only one who was arrested. And if you watch the videos, because it's everywhere, Blaze even did an article on this story, that she was just asking questions. She wanted to know how the officer felt personally about just doing his job and why this was, so harmful, and why she needed to be arrested. And even the women around her were asking, what are you going to do with her children? And they ignored all of that and decided to arrest her anyways. So the thing that's really becoming a theme as we go through this are the crowds of people, only a handful of people getting arrested. The fines are maxed out in every instance. Charges are inconsistent. And I just happened to come across this crazy, Johns Hopkins reporting that it's becoming a disproportionate arrest among minorities. And it could cause civil divide or unrest. Now, I didn't go out looking at the color of any of these poor victims. If you ask me, they're victims. But it really doesn't matter what their skin tone is. And I said this in the last video. I don't understand why we have to make everything about race when there is nothing of the sort in any type of laws or wording or anything like that when it comes to a general sense of public safety. They're not disproportionately telling black people that they can't go out. White people can't go out neither. Asians can't go out neither. Mexicans, they can't go out either. So I don't understand where this disproportionate arrest report comes from when it comes to, being tossed into It finds its way into some of these articles if you actually go and look them up. But it was just interesting to me. In Louisiana, we know about the pastors that have been victimized by the unlawful orders that are in place. Tony Spell was the pastor that was arrested for holding church services. Now they have him on house arrest. Thankfully, Tony Spell in Louisiana, he is not complying and he still doesn't care. He's actually been holding church services and showing off his ankle monitor to his congregation. So let's give him a great big round of applause for standing up and leading Do Not Comply. In Florida, Rodney Howard Brown was arrested for holding church services. They held him on a $5,000 bail. Now, Christiane Hall can tell you a lot more about this Florida pastor because that is her pastor. And I just wanted to bring him into the list so that we know that it's not just people who are living in impoverished situations. It's not people who are just, your average housewife wanting to get out of the house. It's also pastors. It's also, people who just don't want to be told where they can go and where they can't go because they live in America, and that is their right. It is their right to peacefully assemble. It is their right to enjoy tax amenities. I mean, they're paying for those parks. They're paying a portion for those beaches and for those lifeguards, and you're paying for the police salaries, and you're paying these people to lock you up because you might get sick. And this is where it ties back into what we know now compared to what we didn't know then. What we didn't know was how accurate the information we were getting from the government was going to be. Now that we know, why are these lockdown orders still in place, and why does it seem that they are ramping up the arrests of regular citizens? I also noticed that there are a lot of jails releasing potentially positive inmates into the population. So what they're doing is, after they're testing positive, they're releasing those people out into the public. Now, I don't know every prisoner's background story, what type of support system they have, what type of homes they're coming from or into or whatever. But a lot of inmates who get released and then come back into the population don't have places to go. They don't have money. They don't have basic things to get them back up and running in a normal economy, let alone when they come home and it's a pandemic and they don't have access to a doctor. They don't have money they can't even stay in a hotel in some cases because the hotels are closed. So where are these people going to go? And then you have them that they're tested positive for this virus. And we know that asymptomatic people are spreading the virus more than even symptomatic people, because symptomatic people are able to self-quarantine, take care of themselves. They know that they're sick. They're trying desperately not to spread the virus. But if they're asymptomatic and they're being released, where are they going in society? What are they doing? How much contact are they having with the regular average American citizen? If you look at, especially down here, the homeless people, they like to hang out in Walmart because Walmart's open 24 hours. They can go right into the vestibule when you first come into the store, and they stay on the benches. They get some sleep there. They use that to charge their phones. So if we're all allowed to go to Walmart for necessities, and you're releasing positively tested inmates out into the public, and they're going into the public areas as well, and you know that the virus is being spread mainly by asymptomatic people, I don't know what else to come up with other than you want to bolster these numbers, because this just doesn't make any sense. So you're clearing out and releasing prisoners. You're making room in the prisons for the people that you're picking up for violating these stay-at-home orders. In the same time, you're releasing a double threat to the population between a criminal, because violent criminals are being released. Robert Poindexter was being held at Rikers Island in New York for a rape charge. He was released after he tested positive for corona. 10 days later, he reoffended and was arrested again. So he was positive for corona. He came out, he committed another crime, created another victim, and potentially infected all these people, and then went right back into the jail system. So if he didn't have it before, say if it was a false positive or something like that, and you put him back into the jail system, I don't understand how that helps him. I don't understand how that helps society. I don't know how you explain that to his victim who was hurt, who became a victim. I don't understand that. James Little, also in New York, was on parole for a murder he committed in 95. He was freed from jail, and so he was on parole. I'm sorry, this story's a little bit confusing. He was on parole for a murder in 95. He assaulted his girlfriend while he was on parole. So he offended, they took him back to jail. He was arrested on assault charges. After he got released from jail for the assault charges on his girlfriend, because apparently that doesn't keep you in jail. So you have, you're on parole for murder, you commit assault, you get released from jail for the coronavirus, and then he attempted a bank robbery. So he's right back in jail where he should have been in the first place. I don't see how this is supposed to help. And if truly the government wanted to protect us, if truly they had our health and our safety and our well-being at heart, these innocent people wouldn't have been arrested the way that they were. If you want to give them a fine, okay. There was a hairdresser, I can't remember exactly where she was. I think it was in California. Don't quote me again, but I know that you guys have heard about this story where the police came and wanted her to shut down her hair salon, and they handed her a fine, and she ripped it up and said, "I'm not paying this," and just kind of went about her business. If that's something that you want to do, that's fine. And if we want to handle this as, like I said, a fine system where first offense is this, second offense is that, blah, 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 all the way down the line, I think that would have even been a smarter approach rather than arresting innocent people who have done nothing more than leave their house. There's no laws against what these people were doing before they got arrested. Now, granted, in the one case with the alcohol, like I said, you could have arrested them on open containers or drunk in public, or depending on the situation, because you'll see a lot of these stories if you go look them up. They're not really detailed. They pay more attention to, hey guys, look, if you don't comply, this is what we're going to do. So all in all, it just brings more light to the police state that we're treading into. And then when you think about people who are against reopening, they don't think it's a good idea right now. They don't want the numbers to spike. They don't want to. Everybody has their own reasons. I understand that. But we said this in the beginning, and I know that I said this in the beginning. When we talk about a new normal after this virus crisis, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the systematic change of society. We're talking about how people are going to behave in public and with other people and interacting with other people going into the future. So, I read a post on Facebook from one of my followers that said, you know, the look in people's eyes when they're out in public now is scary. Everybody's kind of leery of each other. They don't, you know, want to get close to each other. It just looks like, you know, a savage kind of primal look in these people's eyes, because nobody knows who's carrying this disease and who's got what and what's going to happen. And so many lies are in people's heads that they can't even fathom that this might not be as serious as they were told. And they're acting and they're behaving that way. You don't just turn that off. You can't turn off that survival instinct inside of you once the fight or flight response has been kicked in. So people who have a hard time, you know, kind of distinguishing between what's dangerous and what's not dangerous, that they have more flight than they have fight, these people are not going to go right back into public. They're not going to feel comfortable, probably for a really long time after this is all said and done. And when you have politicians talking about, again, printing more money and putting more incentives, actually, I think it's kind of funny. Somebody I know decided that, you know, they just weren't going to go back to work. They're actually going to collect unemployment benefits because it's more money than they would make going back to work. People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who you know, are out in public just telling people, don't go back to work. You don't have to go back to work. Just don't do it. How do we fix that mentality now that we've all been scared to the point where we're all going to die? How do we fix what these people are feeling? How are they going to feel safe? What are we going to have to implement for them to feel safe? I know that you guys have seen the plastic shields that have come up in the grocery stores. How long are those going to stay after the establishment spent money on them? How long are those going to stay in place? Not that they do very much. I thought it was kind of funny. I went to Publix right after they were put up in their shields, and it's right when you go to the cashier and there's got that little spot that you used to be able to write checks on, and that's where the glass is. And unfortunately, the pin pad is right to the right-hand side of that. So when I check out, I stand in front of the pin pad. So when I'm talking to the cashier, there's no plastic in between us anyways. So I don't understand where, again, none of this has made any sense. We are supposed to stay in and you know, not go anywhere, but it's okay to go somewhere for the benefit of spending money. If that's not just in and of itself kind of ridiculous, there's a million other things that we don't understand. We can all be squished together in a grocery store, fighting over meat face to face with each other, but we can't be sitting on the beach. There are videos out there. Again, this is not an inclusive list by any means. There are people out there who were harassed on the beach for sitting down because the beach was supposed to be for exercise. And they decided to have a sit down. Apparently that's illegal. If you're not questioning what's going on, I feel like, you know, you think that nothing bad can ever happen to you, and bless you all, because I may be freaking out and I may be kind of going a little bit above and beyond with, you know, bringing all these instances all together and making sure that everybody can see exactly what's going on here. But I think I've raised a couple valid questions. I think I've actually started to get some people that I know thinking outside of the box as to how we move forward into the future. We don't know what is in store for us. You know, I can already hear this is going to come back around in the fall. We know that this is an election year. We know that most colds and you know, other viruses and the flu and everything are also seasonal as well. So if it was an end of the season illness, what's to say that it isn't coming back at the end of this season? And how will that play into the election? And if you're not following the Spygate things that are happening while the rest of this coronavirus stuff is going on, you're missing all the good stuff. And we even said it when the Russia hoax was going on. Once all this stuff comes to light, it's going to be a bombshell. People are just going to lose their minds when they realize how badly that they were lied to. And again, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, and everybody's welcome to their opinions, but I couldn't see an event happening other than this virus. There's no other event that could have or would have happened that could have shielded the information that's coming out in Spygate better than people thinking they're going to die. So interestingly enough, we talk about the virus and all these different pieces and parts that are moving in politics today as separate entities. But if you take a step back and kind of look at everything in a big picture, you will come to more questions. You will start asking yourself why these things are going on and start analyzing the data even a little bit more. And I mean, throw into there the fact that YouTube came out and told everybody, we're going to start censoring and pulling information that goes against the experts, the WHO and the CDC, who, again, told us one thing in the beginning, changed their story in the middle, changed it one more time, and then went right back to their original claims. So these people who are supposed to be the experts, who we're not supposed to question, who we're not supposed to talk about, you're going to let them continue to speak. And she used these specific examples. If you encourage natural medicine, if you encourage vitamins, she said vitamin C in particular, and turmeric as cure-alls, which anybody that's into the natural remedies, we know it's not a cure-all, but it is a safe alternative. These are things that you should be getting into your body anyways that could be beneficial to you. And it could not. Some cases it's not beneficial at all. But the point of the matter is these people are offering you alternate solutions to the big pharma cry out that people are constantly crying about. Big pharma is this, and big pharma controls everything, and big pharma, big pharma, big pharma. Who do you think encourages you to go to big pharma as opposed to trying a change in your diet, a change in your lifestyle, a change in your surroundings, a change in things that you have in your house? I mean, certain plants and certain herbs and things that you can grow and put into your room can have many beneficial results on your health. So we're talking about putting all of our trust into somebody who is encouraging synthetic medication, who doesn't really know what they're talking about because they consistently change their point of view on what we should or what we shouldn't do, or what is or what isn't acceptable to do. But also, we're not allowed to question those people. We're not allowed to question the police officers that are making these arrests. We're not allowed to question the government officials that we elected, that we are in charge of, that we are supposed to be making checks and balances on. We're not supposed to be doing any of that, or they will shut down our line of communication. They will shut us up in jails. They will lock us up. They will make sure that we cannot communicate freely amongst each other. I don't know where this is going to go after this. The only thing that I can say is I am so inspired by the patriots who stood up, who were out during these lockdown orders, who did get these arrests and these violations. And I really hope that they go all the way until these unconstitutional charges are dropped, their names are cleared, and that they go back to some sort of semblance of normal. We have to get back to freedom. We just cannot live like ants in an ant farm. We cannot be workers just working for the benefit of others. We cannot be in the lap of the government. We cannot do it. Cannot do it. And I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I am really looking forward to the Patriot Picnic. I cannot wait to get down there. Everybody should know at this point in time, obviously, if you're sick, stay home. I don't want to drag you out sick, potentially, harm yourself or others. I don't want that. But I do want everybody that's happy and healthy and wants to get out, come down to General Coffee Park in Georgia. Come hang out with us. Have some food. You're encouraged to bring something for your family. I want to bring some food. I'm going to have a couple banners there. My co-host said that she was going to bring some stuff to give away. I have a couple people that already confirmed that they're coming. I'm so thankful for you guys. I really can't wait to meet everybody. The kids are ready. The husband's ready. I think we all just need to get out and to intermingle again with every story that I read of the shutting down of communication and trying to drive a wedge in between society. I really think that this picnic is going to, just make some good friends. And if we choose to move on to, a bigger scene or a rally scene or a protest scene, whatever you guys want to do, once we get into contact with each other and we get all of our, jitters out and kind of make ourselves a community again. We really need to get back to being a community again, if you ask me, because society is gotten so far to the point where, there's nobody standing up for these people who were arrested. I mean, you can sit around and you can videotape it and you can, speak to the officers. I think actually in the Sarah Brady case, they served the officer with a redress of their grievances at his home. But ultimately, at the end of the day, she should have never been arrested in the first place. And if that means that we need to preemptively come together and come up with ideas on how to speak in the communities, get the information out to our kids, I think that the picnic will be a great place to throw those ideas off of each other in a safe space. So I hope you guys agree. If you don't agree, you're more than welcome to not agree. Please put your comments in below. I try to always follow up on whatever's given to me. I do apologize. Some days I just don't like looking at myself on camera. So it's, it's really hard to get on here. I know that I seem really comfortable, but it is a little bit nerve-wracking to come and be... I guess, a voice. But we have to get over that. We really have to get over that in society. We really have to start doing it more. Again, I'm such a hermit. I like to stay in the house. I don't go very many places. I don't do very many things unless it's, family oriented and I take my kids and all that stuff. But I've never wanted just to go to the beach more in my entire life than I did this past month. And it's not even beach weather. I just wanted to go to protest. I've never wanted to just go stand in front of a Capitol building before, with no other reason to be there other than the fact that you told me that I couldn't be there. So, with the states opening up, I highly doubt that by the 16th, we will have any issues with, police or park patrol or anything like that. I'm not anticipating any issues, but it's always a possibility. Just be on your toes when you guys come out. Remember, follow the park guidelines, and you can carry in Georgia parks. So it is permitted in the park. So get some information about the park. I posted it in... I think it's 2 videos ago. I posted information about the Patriot Picnic. And as the event comes closer, we'll talk about it more. So I hope you guys go and check that out. Get some information about the Wear It Out Patriot Picnic. I hope to see you guys there. And I will catch you on the next one.